Okay, we start here at paragraph 10, and we are now getting ready for the trip. So this is a family road trip, okay? Um, so the grandmother's the first one in the car. Notice she was the one who didn't want to go, but of course, she's the first one ready to go. She's got a black suitcase, and she's hiding a basket with her cat, Pity Singh. Um, which is actually kind of a racist name right there. It's from a Gilbert and Sullivan um, opera about the Japanese, the Mikado, um, and so that's kind of a racist name there. Um, she noticed why she brings the cat. She wasn't going to leave the cat alone in the house for 3 days. First, because the cat would miss her too much, and she was afraid he might brush against one of the gas burners and accidentally asphyxiate himself. Okay, so that's her fear. So notice this woman's first two fears. One is that they'll go to Florida and they'll run into the misfit, this criminal who's a loose. And her second fear is that her cat, if left alone, might run into one of the gas burners and somehow, you know, let the gas out and asphyxiate himself. Okay, they all get in the car. She gets in, the grandmother gets in comfortably. Notice how she's usually referred to as the old lady. Um, she's traveling with white cotton gloves, okay? Um, and she's very dressed up, right? She has a navy blue straw sailor hat, collars and cuffs were organdy trimmed with lace, right? And she says, the narrator says about her, in case of an accident, anyone seeing her dead on the highway would know at once that she was a lady. Okay? So, very much about appearances. Okay? Now, um, they go on, and she reminds Bailey that what the speed limit is, right? This is just such like the worst, kind of road trip companion, right? Just a nagging mother. Um, she's constantly talking about, details of the scenery. Um, no one else is paying attention. The children are reading comic books. The mother's back asleep. Um, and Bailey's, of course, the one doing the driving. Um, now, John Wesley makes kind of a nasty comment. He says that let's go through Georgia fast so we won't have to look at it much. And the grandmother corrects him um, and says that this is your native state. Tennessee has the mountains and Georgia has the hills. And, and John Wesley says Tennessee is a hillbilly dumping ground and Georgia is a lousy state too. Um, and June Star affirms that. And now the grandmother goes back to in my time, right? Going a little nostalgic. Children were more respectful of their native states and their parents and everything else. Okay. Um, Now she goes on again. Her racism is revealed, and a seeing a black child. Okay, notice this is taking place in pre-civil rights era, the American South. Let me check just to remind myself. This is 1953 is when this was published. Okay. Um, So the grandmother then holds the baby for a bit. They're driving around a little more. Um, Not a lot else is happening here. Okay. Um, she she offers to tell a story. Okay. And now they're stopping for some barbecue. Okay. They stop at this place called the Tower. There's a fat man named Red Sammy Butts. Right, this guy sounds like absolute winner. Um, and there's signs up that say "Try Red Sammy's famous barbecue." Red Sam. Notice the color there, right? I mean, she's named her cat a sort of a Japanese slur. Um, she's which is actually kind of actually a Chinese sounding name. She's noticed the black child on the street, and now this guy is known as Red Sammy. Well, Red Sammy is someone who's clearly not black, right? This is someone who's so white that their skin has turned red from the sun. Um, so they go out, and there's a monkey on a chain, right? That's kind of an odd little detail to note. Um, and they get out and they're about to eat. Red Sammy's wife tries to be nice to the family and says, "Oh, isn't June Star cute? Wouldn't you like to come be my little girl?" And June Star, so rude, says, "I certainly wouldn't. I wouldn't live in a broken down place like this for $1,000,000." So the kids do, I mean, come across as pretty rude. I mean, the grandmother's no treat herself, but she's right to notice that the kids aren't very respectful. And the woman just tries to be polite and graceful about it. And the grandmother hisses, "Aren't you ashamed?" Notice all the verbs that are attached to her, whether it was seizing or rattling or hissing. Um, it's very interesting the kinds of verbs that Flannery uses to describe her actions. All right, and now Red Sam and the grandmother have a little bit of an exchange. Right, they talk about like these days. Things are different these days. You don't know who to trust. People are not like they used to be. They both have this idea of these sort of halcyon days when things were better. Um, and then the grandmother asks um, about, "Have you read about the misfit?" Um, and the woman, Red Sammy's wife, says, "I wouldn't be surprised if he's attracted to this place here." Okay, um, and then Red Sam tells her to go off, and now we get a statement of the title, sort of cliche. A good man is hard to find. Everything is getting terrible. I remember the day you could go off and leave your screen door unlatched. Not no more. Okay? So notice again these two, the grandmothers found a sort of kindred spirit, somebody who thinks that the past was better, um, and that people right now are no good. Okay? They discuss better times. Somehow the grandmother says Europe's to blame, right? The way Europe acted, you would think they were made of money. Um, and now the children go outside. They look at the monkey, and he's busy catching fleas and eating them like a delicacy. And now they leave Red Sammy. So that was their little interlude. Okay. Um, now she's asleep, the grandmother, and then she wakes up and remembers an old plantation she had visited in this neighborhood. Um, she said this house had columns on it, and she recalled exactly where to turn to go for it. Now she knew that Bailey wouldn't want to lose any time, but she says that hopefully the more she talks about it, the more she wanted to see it again. All right, and she says there's a secret panel in this house. Okay. Notice what the narrator tells us, though, that this is her being crafty. She's not telling the truth, but wishing that she were. And she says the story went that all the family silver was hidden in it when Sherman came through, but it was never found. So this is the family's silver from the Civil War. Of course, it's a lie, but she's trying to get the family interested. Okay. Now John Wesley perks up. He's like, "Oh, we got to go see it." June Star, of course. So here we go with classic road trip motif of the whining ass kids telling their dad, "Oh, we got to stop here. We got to do this." And Bailey doesn't want to stop, but the kids keep screaming. The baby screams. Bailey kicks the back of John Wesley kicks the back of Bailey's seat. And finally, Dad just says, "All right, we'll do it, okay? We'll stop." A decisive moment. The first time, really, that anyone's actually listened to the grandmother. But notice what it took. It took tantrums from the kids. The grandmother says there's a dirt road, and Bailey's ticked about that we're going to have to drive down. Okay. Um, so they now decide they're going to drive on this dirt road. The dirt road is hilly, um, and they're it's a difficult road to drive on. Down here at the bottom, the grandmother says it's not much further, but then the narrator tells us a horrible thought came to her. The thought was so embarrassing that she turned red in the face, and her eyes dilated, and her feet jumped up, upsetting the valise in the corner. Okay, so something occurred to her, right? She had this embarrassing thought, and look at what this thought stimulated. It caused her valise, that's another word for like a briefcase or suitcase, to move, and the cat that she had hidden sprang onto Bailey's shoulder. So now you're on a dirt road, you've got this damn cat in the car, and it's jumped onto the driver's shoulder. Okay? Children are thrown on the floor. The mother clutching the baby was out the door onto the ground. The old lady was thrown to the front seat. The car turned over and landed right side up in a gulch. Okay. Bailey was in the driver's seat with the cat clinging to his neck like a caterpillar. Okay, so it caused Bailey to lose control of the car, and they crashed, right? The old lady was thrown in the front seat. Look at it, everything that's happened. The mother is now on the ground with the baby. My goodness. This sounds all really terrible. June Star gets out. The children get out and say, we've had an accident. And now she's hoping she's injured so that Bailey's wrath would not come down on her all at once. So she knows she made a mistake here. She was hiding the cat, for one thing. But the other thing is she just remembered that the thought she had before the accident was that the house she was thinking about was not in Georgia, but was in Tennessee. So she was totally confused and led them down the wrong road in the wrong state. And it was her embarrassment at the thought that instigated the cat being stirred and then jumping onto Bailey and then causing this terrible accident. So we'll pause here.